Do you know that the single biggest expense is draining your small farm every winter? The one thing that keeps you up at night when hay prices spike and your neighbor's truck pulls away with the last few bales? What if that problem had a solution sitting right under your nose this whole time? One that takes up less land than your vegetable garden and costs a fraction of what you're spending right now. I've been sitting on this for a while, and today we're talking about it. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear changes things. If you're building a more self-sufficient life for your family, a life where you're not at the mercy of suppliers and weather and prices you can't control, then this channel exists for you. Every week, I bring you practical, tested ideas that real small farmers are using right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because the kind of content I put out, you don't want to miss it when it drops. All right, let's get into it. The crop we're talking about today is called fodder beets. And I know what you're thinking. Beets? You're trying to tell me beets are going to feed my herd all winter. I thought the exact same thing the first time I heard it. Seemed almost too old-fashioned, too simple. But that's exactly why it works. While everyone else is chasing complicated systems and expensive equipment, this crop, quiet, stubborn, incredibly productive, has been feeding livestock through brutal European winters for generations. It just never really crossed over into mainstream American farming. And that, my friend, is your opportunity. Fodder beets are not your garden variety table beets. They're not sugar beets either. These are root vegetables from the Beta vulgaris family, selectively developed over centuries specifically to produce maximum energy and nutrition for livestock. They grow big. They grow dense. And they produce yields that will genuinely make your jaw drop the first time you see the numbers on paper. Here's the comparison that stopped me cold when I first read it. A healthy hayfield, good conditions, decent soil, produces somewhere between 3 and 5 tons per acre. That's what most small farmers are working with. Fodder beets? On that same acre, you're looking at 50 to 80 tons, not a typo. We're talking about 10 to 20 times more feed from the same footprint of land. For a small farm with limited acreage, that is not just an improvement. That is a complete transformation of what's possible. And the nutrition profile backs it up. Fodder beets are high in digestible energy. They contain fiber that supports healthy rumen function, and they have natural sugars that cattle genuinely enjoy eating, even in the dead of winter when cold temperatures make animals picky and intake drops. Unlike hay, which starts losing nutritional value the moment it's cut and continues degrading throughout storage, properly stored fodder beets hold their quality. Month after month, what you put away in October is still feeding your herd just as well in February. There's also something that most people overlook when they first learn about this crop. The bulb grows partially above ground. That sounds like a small detail, but it matters enormously at harvest time. You're not digging deep like you would with carrots or parsnips. The beet sits right there, half exposed, practically offering itself up. Harvest becomes a job you can actually manage on a small operation without specialized equipment. And one more thing before we get into the how, fodder beets are forgiving in a way that most crops aren't. Poor drainage? They handle it. Heavy clay soil? Fine. Cool fall temperatures that shut down other crops? That's actually when fodder beets hit their stride. They grow during the season when most of your other plants have given up. That alone makes them worth serious attention. Now let's talk about why this investment actually holds up under pressure, because I know some of you are skeptical, and you should be. You've tried things before that sounded great and didn't deliver, so let me break down exactly why fodder beets are different. First, the root system. Hay crops are shallow-rooted. They need consistent rainfall at the surface to keep growing, and when conditions get dry, they stall. Fodder beets develop a taproot that pushes 2 to 3 feet deep into the soil. They're pulling water and nutrients from layers that your hay never reaches. During a dry stretch when your hayfield is stressed and going dormant, fodder beets are still quietly growing down below. That natural drought resistance requires zero management from you. Second, cold tolerance. Most crops are fighting against fall temperatures. Fodder beets welcome them. After a light frost hits, something interesting happens. The sugars in the beet actually concentrate, which makes them even more palatable to your livestock. That means you don't have to panic harvest before the first freeze. You can leave them in the ground well into late fall, pulling them when you need them rather than scrambling to beat the weather like you do with hay timing. For a small farmer juggling 10 other responsibilities, that flexibility is worth a lot. Third, the land use angle is huge. Fodder beets don't need your best ground. Got a low spot that floods in spring and won't support alfalfa? That could be your fodder beet patch. Heavy clay that produces thin, poor-quality hay? Fodder beets thrive there. You're not giving up productive ground. You're bringing marginal land into real use without expensive amendments or years of soil remediation. Now let's get brutally honest about the money, because this is where it gets real for most families. If you're wintering 30 cows on purchased hay at today's prices, when you masis, and we're talking anywhere from $150 to $250 per ton, you're spending somewhere between $4,000 and $7,500 every single winter. That's before anything goes wrong, before a bad hay year, before a supplier runs short, before prices spike because everyone in your region had the same bad summer. Now run the fodder beet numbers. Seed for a half acre costs you $50 to $100. Add your fuel and the time to plant and harvest with equipment you likely already own. Your total cash outlay is rarely more than $500. And that's being generous. For that $500, you produce enough nutrition to get 30 cows through winter with room to spare. That's a savings of $4,000 to $6,000 every year, every single year that you do this. Over 5 years, you've kept $25,000 to $30,000 that would have walked out the door to hay suppliers. That's a truck payment. That's a new piece of equipment. That's your kid's first year of college. These are not abstract numbers. This is money that stays in your family and builds your operation instead of someone else's. But I want to say something about what that kind of financial stability actually feels like, because it's about more than the math. When you grow your own feed, you stop making desperate December phone calls trying to find out who has hay left. You stop gambling on whether this summer's weather cooperates. You walk to your storage pile and you take what you need, and you know it's there, and you know it's good. That feeling, that quiet, solid confidence, is what most of us got into farming to find in the first place. So let's talk about how to actually do this. 3 steps. That's all this takes. The first step is seed selection and timing. You want varieties that were specifically bred for fodder use. Not table beets, not sugar beets. The varieties that have the strongest track record are Brigadier, Kairos, and Banger. These are available through agricultural seed suppliers, though you may need to order online since most local farm stores don't stock them. Budget $50 to $100 for enough seed to plant your half acre. Planting time is late spring after your last frost date. April through May for most of the United States, depending on your zone. You want the plants to establish during mild temperatures so they're strong and vigorous when summer arrives. Soil preparation is simple. Till or plow to a depth of 6 to 8 inches. You don't need perfect seedbed conditions like you would for vegetables. You're just breaking up compaction so the roots can get established. If your soil pH is below 6, a lime application helps. Otherwise, you're ready to go. The second step is planting and early care, and I want to be upfront with you. This is the part most people overcomplicate in their heads before they even start. So let's slow it down and make it simple. Use row spacing of 18 to 20 inches. That spacing is intentional. It gives each plant enough room to develop properly while allowing the canopy to close over and naturally shade out weeds as the season moves forward. You're essentially letting the crop do its own weed management, which is one of the quiet advantages nobody talks about enough. Plant your seeds 1 to 2 inches deep, about 4 to 6 inches apart within the row. And please, don't stress about perfect placement. Fodder beets are not fussy. They're not like carrots that throw a fit if the spacing is off by an inch. They're forgiving, they're adaptable, and you can always thin later if things come in too thick in certain spots. Water if conditions are dry right after planting, but don't obsess over moisture. These plants want to grow. Within 2 weeks, you'll see germination pushing through, and by weeks 3 and 4, you'll have visible rows of leafy green growth that'll genuinely make you smile the first time you walk out and see it. Once plants reach about 6 inches tall, give the rows one pass with a hoe or cultivator to knock back any early weeds trying to establish. That one pass, maybe an hour or 2 of work across your half acre, is really the last serious labor the crop asks of you all season. After that, The broad leaves close in, shade the ground, and weeds simply struggle to compete. From midsummer onward, the plants are essentially on autopilot. The roots are swelling underground, the tops are filling in above, and your only job is to stay out of the way and let nature do what it does. And real quick, if you're finding this useful, this is what I do every single week on this channel. Practical ideas, real numbers, no fluff. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that button and the bell so you never miss what's coming next. And also share, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let's keep going. The third step is harvest and feeding. And honestly, this is the step where everything you've been working toward all season finally becomes real. You walk out to that field in October, you see those bulbs sitting half out of the ground, and something clicks. This is food. Food you grew. Food that's going to carry your herd through winter without a single phone call to a supplier. Fodder beets reach full size by mid to late fall, typically October through November depending on your location and the variety you planted. The signal to harvest isn't a date on the calendar. It's that first light frost settling over your field. And here's the part that still surprises people, that frost isn't something to panic about. It's actually welcome. The cold concentrates the natural sugars inside the beet, making them even more palatable to your livestock. Your cattle aren't just tolerating them at that point. They're genuinely eager for them, which matters more than most farmers realize when you're trying to maintain consistent intake through bitter cold months. For a 30-cow herd, plan to feed roughly 50 to 70 pounds total per day, mixed with some grass hay or dry roughage to keep rumen function balanced and digestion running smoothly. Don't skip the roughage component. The fiber balance matters, especially early in the transition when your herd is first getting used to the beets. Introduce them gradually over the first week or two and you'll have zero issues. Your half acre producing 50 to 80 tons covers a full winter feeding season with surplus remaining. And that surplus matters because it gives you a buffer for a harder winter, a larger than expected herd, or even a neighbor who wants to buy what you don't use. At this point, some of you are probably feeling something shift, like the pieces are starting to click into place and you're seeing your farm differently than you did 20 minutes ago. Good. Hold on to that feeling. But let me share a real story that makes all of this even more concrete. The Hendersons run a small beef operation in central Tennessee, 40 acres, 28 cows, and for years they were doing exactly what most small operators do, buying all their winter hay from neighbors and from the feed store when things got tight. Most years they spent close to $5,000 just to get their herd from November to March. The math worked. Barely, but there was never any cushion, never any room to breathe. One bad year, a drought, a price spike, an unexpected equipment breakdown at the worst possible moment, and they'd be in real trouble. That kind of financial tightrope is exhausting. And if you've lived it, you already know exactly what that feels like. A family friend mentioned fodder beets at a livestock auction. Tom Henderson dismissed it immediately. Old European farming technique, he thought. Not relevant to a Tennessee hill farm. But his wife Sarah kept reading about it, kept running the numbers, kept coming back to the same conclusion. They had a low corner of one field that flooded every spring and never produced decent hay. Anyway, it was essentially wasted ground. They planted half an acre of Brigadier variety the following April. Total seed cost was $80. They used the tractor they already owned for tillage. The whole planting process took one Saturday morning. The growing season was almost embarrassingly uneventful. They cultivated weeds once in June, that was it. By October, the field looked like something out of a different century. Enormous bulbs, lush green tops, more food than they'd ever grown on that corner of ground in their lives. They harvested over a weekend with family help and stored the beets in their existing barn. The cattle took to them immediately. Within 2 weeks, body condition scores were noticeably up across the herd. Come spring, the cows calved in better shape than in any previous year. Calves were stronger, weaned heavier, and sold for a premium. Tom told anyone who would listen that the fodder beets didn't just save them money on feed, they actually improved the productivity of their entire operation. The math that first year showed nearly $5,000 saved on hay costs. They sold surplus beets to 2 neighboring farms for another $1,200. 3 years in, they've expanded to a full acre. They haven't bought hay since. Now, let me answer the questions I know are already forming in your mind. Will this work in your climate? Fodder beets grow successfully across USDA zones 3 through 8, which covers the overwhelming majority of the continental United States. If you can grow potatoes where you live, you can grow fodder beets. In warmer zones, plant earlier and choose heat-tolerant varieties. In the coldest northern zones, focus on getting plants established before peak summer heat arrives. What about livestock other than cattle? This works excellently for sheep, goats, and pigs. Sheep and goats often prefer fodder beets to hay, which makes feeding time considerably easier. For smaller animals, scale quantities to roughly 2 to 3% of their body weight daily. Pigs gain very well on fodder beets combined with grain. Is there a learning curve? I'm going to be straight with you. Yes, there is. The first year, you're learning your exact planting window, getting a feel for when to harvest, figuring out your storage setup. Most farmers find that by year 2, yields are significantly better and the whole process feels natural. Starting on half an acre means your learning curve costs almost nothing if you make mistakes. University extension offices in your state can also offer specific guidance for your soil type and climate. What about the seed investment? $50 to $100 for a half acre. Return on that investment happens in the first season when you skip buying several $1,000s in hay. There is no other investment on your farm that pays back faster. Here's something I want to leave you with. A simple shift that makes this whole system even more manageable than it already sounds. Instead of harvesting everything at once in one marathon weekend, try harvesting progressively through early winter. Pull what you need each week and leave the rest in the ground. In Zone 6 and warmer, you can often harvest fresh beets well into December or even January by covering the remaining rows with a layer of straw to insulate against hard freezes. Here's why this matters. Fresh beets straight from the field have higher water content and maximum palatability. Your cattle will eat them eagerly, and you're not dealing with storing 40 tons of roots all at once. You're just digging what you need when you need it, letting the earth do the refrigeration for you. It turns what sounds like a big annual project into a simple weekly rhythm that becomes part of your normal routine. That's the kind of change that actually sticks over the long term. You don't have to overhaul your whole operation. You don't need a new tractor or a bigger barn or a different piece of land. You need half an acre, $50 in seed, and one season to prove to yourself that this works. That's it. That's the entire barrier to entry. Real self-sufficiency doesn't start with a perfect plan. It starts with one honest decision to try something that could change your situation. This is one of those decisions. If this kind of content speaks to you, practical, no hype ideas built for real families working real land, then this channel is exactly where you need to be. Subscribe right now, like, share, and turn on your notifications so you never have to go looking for the next idea. And let me know what you think in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.